No problem. So we'll start from there. And just so you guys know, I am recording this. So I will give access to your school with this afterwards. So if you want to go back and review anything, you can. Another great thing to do right now is to start off, open up your email. And you're going to draft an email to me. So I'm going to screen share my email address with you in just a second. And this is great because even if you don't get your questions answered, you can email me right from the start. Okay, hold on, let me screen share. All right, so if you look right here on my screen, I'm gonna make that a little bigger. You can see my email address right there, becca@quill.org.
Can you make that bigger?
Let's see if I can make that any bigger. I'll move it somewhere where I can make it bigger.
Do you have your Quill account set up? Yeah.
Okay. B.
There's part of it. All right, let me do. There we go. There you go. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, so just start there. You can start a draft of the email, and then I'll remind you to send it to me again at the end. But this is just a place for any questions, anything specific you're thinking about how you're going to use the tool. And in general, I like for you to have this because we'll talk a little bit about being an open source collaborative product and how I'm going to need your feedback throughout the course of this. So let me know when you're ready to move away from my email address.
We're starting a draft of an email to her.
Okay.
Yeah, just move it.
Oh, it's an email.
Yeah. Ready?
Ready to move on?
So email him tomorrow.
All right, is everybody ready?
Mm-hmm.
Is it becca@quill.org? Yep.
becca@quill.org. Okay, so what we're going to do first is those of you who haven't logged on yet, we're going to have you log in. This will be a quick reminder for those of you who've already signed up. You are at quill.org. That is not quill.com. If you go to quill.com, they're going to try to sell you paper. So stick with us, quill.org. You're on this main page, and please just say stop if you need me to stop so you could look at something. So we're going to go to the main page. We're clicking on sign up here in the corner. Are you guys a Google Classroom school?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So then when you sign up, you're going to sign up as an educator, and you're not going to fill this in. Now, at no point, if you have a Google Classroom account that you're signing in with, will you use this data down here. Sign in with Google by clicking on this button at the top of your screen. So the G is where we're clicking. Be a G, as they would say. Okay, so for me, I'm going to click on the account that I already have. For you, when you click on the account, it's going to show you something right at the front that I can open up to show you now. In order to get access to the premium service that your school has paid for, you have to make sure that you tell us that you're a faculty member of that school. You see this question, are you a faculty member at a US K-12 school? Make sure that you click yes, and then enter the zip code. What's the zip code for your school?
95403.
95403. All right, and there we are, Hilliard, Comstock Middle. And then I'm gonna confirm the school. Now that I've done this, I should be upgraded. I might need to refresh my account. I should be automatically upgraded. Let's see what's going on. Have we set up an administrative dashboard for you yet, Sue?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So it should set you up then so you have access to premium. The way you can tell if you have premium is when you click on student reports. You should be able to click on these 3 reports and get access. Okay. So currently we don't have any data, but you will be able to access these reports. If for some reason, once you start having data, you can't access these reports, just let me know and we'll get you set up. Okay. Make sure you're attached to your school. That's how we make sure that you get the services that your school has paid for. All right. So now that we have started this out, I'm going to go ahead and sort of start from the beginning with how I would get my class started with Quill. As I go, I have a tendency to speak quickly and get very excited about things. So please feel free to shout, slow down, or stop and ask me a question. And I will do so.
My screen looks a little different than yours. I don't know if that's because I'm not an administrator, but.
Your screen says what?
It looks similar, but I don't have like that brown button or.
You don't have this one? Or this guy?
Right.
That's because you have already been upgraded to premium. So part of the issue here is I'm logged into sort of a separate account. So it hasn't yet upgraded my account to premium. So any of these, right, like those are not going to exist for you anymore because it knows that you have premium service. As long as you can click on these 3 orange buttons, you will be able to access premium reporting. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to log out and I'm going to log back in to our demo account. You guys have access to this at any point. So if you want to follow along with me here rather than in your account, you can press log out and then you can go to quill.org/demo.
Should we all do that now?
No, you don't have to. You can continue to stay logged into your own account unless you really want to follow along and click on buttons yourself. I know we got different types of learners. I'm a button clicking learner and other people are watching learners. So as we go here, right, you've got quill.org/demo is what I'm looking at right now. First thing you're doing is you're setting up your classes. Have you guys set up your Google Classrooms yet?
No. Some have.
Some have, some haven't. Not a problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my classes. Now, even if you don't have your Google Classroom set up yet, I recommend creating a class. So in all of my schools, I have a master class that is 1 grade. Usually, I don't put any students in this class. Now, the reason I create this master class is because I can't create my own activity packs unless I have a class to which I can assign them. So it is important to me to have a master class so I can create activity packs and assign them to one place and then transfer them to my other classes once they're created. Okay? So under classes, manage classes, create a class, you can enter that information. Now, if you're a Google Classroom user, you can just click on the button that says import from Google Classroom. Now, what that'll do is pull the names of your classes in, and that way you will have each one of those classes set up right there. Now, the next stage is putting students in. Do you need me to pause or can I keep going? I'm going to keep going. All right.
Keep going.
Great. So I've now clicked on the Invite Students tab. You can invite them by having them create their accounts here. However, if they are doing this through Google Classroom, you're going to want to go to option 2, sync with Google Classroom. Now, when you press that button, what it's going to do is pull all of the kids that are in your Google Classroom into that same class on Quill. So you should be able to, with the click of that button, add students to your class. Now, you'll notice there's this option down here at the bottom, add your students. We don't want to use this button. And the reason you don't want to use this button is because this will add a student and create a whole new account for them, right? So we don't want to create a new account. We want them to use their Google Classroom accounts.
Marbury, can you zoom in on your browser a little bit, like on the 3 dots on the corner where it says zoom in?
Sorry, which one? Oh, no, your phone.
You're in Firefox. I'm in Chrome, but on Chrome it's the three dots and it's zoom in a little bit, or pinch and zoom on a laptop. A little more. That seems one back out.
There we go.
Back up. That feels better.
Beautiful. Good. All right, so here we go. So we've got the screen. You guys have synced your Google Classes. You have your students in your class. If you want to check to see how that worked out for you, you can click on Manage Classes. You can see these are my different classes. I can look at my students, and if there's a class in there that I just don't use anymore, I can archive that. It's still going to show up here under my inactive classes, but it's not going to be something that I'm assigning to or that gets in my way when I'm trying to assign. Okay? So now we know how to assign. Now we know how to create our classes, manage our classes. Those are all there. They're always going to be there. So let's get into starting our assignments. Now, Quill is a tool that starts out with a diagnostic. This isn't mandatory. If you just want to assign your own choices, you're welcome to. We try to create a clear path for teachers, but also make it so your choice is what prevails. We know that for the most part, teachers, actually in all cases, teachers will always know their students better than computers will, but this is a tool to support you because we know you don't have all the time in the world. So here we are, right? Choose what types of assignments you want to use. Now we start with an entry diagnostic. So I'm clicking here underneath assign activities on an entry diagnostic, okay? So we have two options here. One is the sentence structure diagnostic. I'm just going to take a minute to wax poetic about Quill's strategies and philosophy. So Quill is built on the idea of sentence construction and sentence combining. Now, sentence combining is like a very specific strategy. Is that one that you all use at Hilliard Comstock?
Sentence combining?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, wait for a second. Yeah, I think we use it. I mean, I wouldn't say that that's the primary focus of what we're doing.
So yeah, so either way, it's not a big deal. What we found when we were doing when the research was happening to sort of decide what was the right way to build our grammar tool, a lot of the research we found was really focused on this idea that if students can connect the ideas in building strong sentences, then they're actually going to be effective writers overall, right? Now, we also know as teachers that there's a step before that, right? There's the step where students simply need support with the grammar to be able to build even a simple sentence, right? So we have two options here. If you have any students who are still in that simple sentence range, they really need help with grammar skills. This is for L students, for students who are a few years below grade level, students who are generally struggling, whatever else. You start with the L diagnostic. Now, for language learners, there are different language options here, so they can select that the directions are written out for them in their native language. I think we have about 6 different languages that it translates into now, but it also works just in plain English for any student who needs a step back to those grammar basics. So you can assign this to some students. To say I click on this, I can preview the diagnostic. All the diagnostic is about 22 sentences that we ask students to combine. So we say, look at this sentence, correct it, or look at this sentence and put it together with this other sentence so it makes sense as one whole sentence.
Okay, hold on just a sec.
It's actually for Lucinda.
She's going too fast and my screen isn't matching hers. I'm trying to pull up the demo, but I was in assign activities, but I can't find that L one. And I did import my Google Classroom.
Sorry, what are you looking for?
The screen that matches yours, and I'm in assign activities. My assign activities doesn't match yours.
Your assign activities doesn't match yours. So if you clicked on the assign activities tab, do you see the entry diagnostic, featured activity pack, and explore all activities options here?
Hold on, now it's broken in sentences. Hold on 1 second. Assign activities won't even open now.
Okay. Are you using the Chrome browser? That's just the first thing I always check.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one of the things that occasionally happens is that if you're logged in and logged out, did you log into the demo account, or are you still in your account?
I was going back and forth between the two.
Okay, so that could be the problem, is it thinks that you're in one account when you're really in the other. So what I recommend doing is opening up an incognito tab, 3 dots in the corner, new incognito window, and then you can log into the demo and play around there, or you can just log into your account. But what that'll do is whatever you log into, there'll just be the one. So what probably makes the most sense is, because I'm in the demo, if you just open your account and you can follow along in your account. So new incognito window, and then log into your account on quill.org.
So while we're waiting, is there, can you just give me it looks like this program is built around sentence structure.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, and so the ELL diagnostic, that goes like backwards a little bit from the sentence structure.
Yeah. Yeah, so there were sort of, when we're talking about L diagnostic skills, the skills we're looking at there are things like subject-verb agreement, commonly confused words, making sure that, like the past, like the tense is correct. Those are the sort of skills we're looking for in the L diagnostic. For the sentence structure diagnostic, we're still considering those skills, but mainly what we're focusing on is looking at the major mistakes we see students make in writing, right? So when we're thinking about the major mistakes, we're thinking about sentence fragments. We're thinking about run-on sentences. We're thinking about using and as our only conjunction, right? If an and doesn't always show the relationship, even if it's correct. So we want to see that not only are students using something that's correct, but they're actually defining the relationship between ideas in the sentence. And we're also looking to make sure that they're not just using short, simple sentences every single time. I went to school, I like baseball, I went home, right? So those are the things that we're sort of looking for in our sentence structure diagnostic. So sorry, one sec. All right.
Maybe first, everybody first.
All right. Where are we right now? Are we ready to keep looking at the diagnostics or move on from here?
Holly?
Well, I'm good.
You good? I think we're good.
Okay, great. So when I've clicked on this L diagnostic, I can assign it now. Now my options are to assign it to my entire class, or I can select by student. Now notice here in my master class, I don't actually have any other students. Let me log out and log the demo.
I don't actually know what we're doing. Yeah. So I can remember what it is. I have no idea what it is. You can sit please.
Yeah, move
I
on.
can help you. Some of you understand my other class or here, just come with me.
So it looks like our demo counts down, which is probably what your problem was earlier. That's a bummer, but it happens sometimes. So let's go into the login. Let me go back to, let's pull up Ashley's account. So what I'm going to do right now is pull up one of our, we have a teacher user who frequently gets real excited about new assignments. So I think anything we've got, she's tried at least once. So I'm going to actually log into her account and show you what that looks like. All right, here we go. Okay, so we were in the assign activities. We were looking at the entry diagnostics. and say that I was looking to assign the sentence structure diagnostic to most of my students. So here I am, I'm clicking to, I'm not gonna actually assign here, but you can see I can select which classes I'd like to assign it to, and I can make choices about students. So say I have 3 or 4 students that I just would rather take the L diagnostic off the bat, I can deselect those students and just stick with these other students to start it out. I think for the diagnostic, for the most part, you'll probably assign one of them to all of your students, unless you have a very specific group that you would like to sort of see what their needs are at a different level. You'll click on Save and Assign. Right now, I'm not going to click on that because I don't want to mess with Ashley's account, and that's how you will assign those diagnostics. Yes, question.
Are you able to change the diagnostic and which skills you're going to be diagnosing after the fact, or do you have to delete everything and start over?
You don't have to delete everything. You can assign the L diagnostic and come back later and assign the sentence structure diagnostic. That's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. That was a great question. So we're going to go to student reports now, because I want you to see what comes immediately after the diagnostic. So like we said, it's a 22 sentence thing. One of the things to remind students when they're using Quill is we ask for what we call precision in language. So once we start working on these skills, you will see students, rather than using multiple choice or selecting one portion of a sentence, will actually type out the sentence from beginning to end. Now, this is a very deliberate choice on our part, because we find that it makes it easier for kids to transfer the skills from Quill to writing actual sentences, paragraphs, essays, etc. As I have a colleague who always says, we want students to be good writers. We don't want them to be good at Quill, right? So the idea is we don't want them to be able to outsmart our system. We want them to be able to practice the writing itself. So one of the things to consider is how well your students type, because that can be a point of frustration when using Quill. So if you have students who are typing less than 25 words per minute, they can get very frustrated. So there are a couple different things we can recommend to you in terms of typing, typing applications that are a great way to get your kids' speed up. Now, a lot of teachers say, well, I don't know if it's a great use of my time for me to have students focus on typing, but at this point, typing is not more important than, but close to as important as handwriting in terms of skills students will be using. So we really encourage you to spend a little time on that. That can also be a really great place for students to go when they're hitting that point of frustration. Say, log out of Quill for a minute, log into Typing Club, and spend a little time practicing this rote skill before you go back and work those grade pieces. That's just one thing we recommend. So here we are looking at the diagnostic, and obviously you can see this is all Ashley's data. So she has all of her students. She doesn't have any students who are yet proficient based on this sentence structure diagnostic. So overall, I can see who my students are who are struggling the most, who's doing the best in my class. Red indicates not there yet. Yellow indicates almost there, and green would indicate they've made it. So now I'm going to click on my recommendations, and I can see here what Quill believes that my students need to work on.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Can we pause for a minute? What tab are you in right now?
Sure. So at the top here, I'm at Student Reports, and then I'm in Diagnostics. You won't yet have any information in your diagnostics because you haven't assigned one yet.
Oh, okay. So we're just even in the demo one?
Yeah.
The demo one you will, but right now it didn't appear to me that the demo was working, so you might want to just follow along with the big screen.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for asking. So here we are with our sentence structure diagnostic. We've got our recommendations. Everything in blue is what Quill thinks my students need to work on. So if I look through here, I can see Alexandria has 3 skills that Quill thinks she needs to work on based on her diagnostic, and Lily has about 5. Now these are activity packs that we're recommending. And we've chosen, there are more than 7 activity packs on Quill, but these are the 7 that we find that these are the skills students need to be able to then do any activity on Quill with great success, right? So these are the ones that teach you the different sentence building skills, and then every other activity on Quill allows you the opportunity to practice and assess and build these skills and really start making strong choices with your sentences. So if I wanted to see, for example, it looks like every student in my class is being recommended the complex sentences pack. I can click on View Pack and see what the assignments are that are featured in this pack. So let me just do some vocabulary real quick. Activity, that's just one assignment that we give to the students. Activity pack, that's a group of assignments that work together to help students achieve the same goal. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to show you an example of a Quill activity. Do the since and because. In Quill, our instructions are always very simple. The reason for this is the research, once again, that we looked at when we were trying to build our activity said that when we focus a lot on jargon, kids memorize words like gerund, but can't use a gerund in a sentence. So we really try to focus on having an example and having those words supplement their understanding and not be the entire portion of their understanding, right? There are some cases where we will use the vocabulary word. We try to do that when it's the only way to sort of understand what exactly we're talking about. So since and because are my joining words that I'll be using, and here are 2 examples of how you might see it. Let's start my lesson. Squid wash up on the shore, scientists can study them. I'm going to go ahead and write what a student might write in just to start out, right? So first of all, I've got my student who's just not doing any work. So they put an S in and then they're like, I'm just going to skip it. Here, what it's going to do is it's going to direct me back to the instructions. And because I entered so little information, it's going to give me a hint on what I might be able to do to write that sentence in a correct way, right? So now I'm going to give it kind of an attempt. Right, I just put all the words they asked for in there. Now it's going to try to give me more hints in terms of moving closer to getting it right, okay? So here's the place where we're asking students to do the mental work. We're not letting them off the hook, and we're also trying to provide them with feedback based on specifically what they give us and show us about their skills, right? So now it's saying reorder the ideas to show squid wash up on the shore is the reason scientists can study them, right? So it's trying to get really specific for me here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get it right. All right, because squid wash up on the shore. All right, so now this is a correct answer for the most part, kind of. So now it's going to ask me to look back at my writing again and try to figure out what might be missing, right? I added a the here, which wasn't necessary, so it's asking me to sort of look at that. Now, beyond that, it's going to ask me to look for any errors in terms of punctuation and capitalization. So notice I had some errors in terms of punctuation and capitalization when we started this activity, but it didn't focus on that to start out with. What it started with was asking me to focus on it asked me to focus on the skill itself using the joining word. And now it's asking me to actually look back and make sure that I have typed with precision. Right? So let's see if I can do this. All right, so now this is my strong sentence. Now this is my absolute favorite thing about Quill. So I was using this in the classroom before I came to work for Quill full time, and this was something that I found led to some of the best class discussions that I heard. So Quill gives options of different ways students have written this sentence correctly. Now, if you pull one of these per time you use Quill, or per week, or even every 2 weeks, and have students look at the possible answers together, you can get into a really great conversation about which one they like. All of these are correct, but which one would you choose in your writing and why? You'll find kids say something like, I would choose the last option because not a lot of people use it and I want to be unique. Or they'll say things like, I really like the order of these ideas. Or they might even just say, I really like how it sounds when I say this out loud. And all of those, quite frankly, are legitimate reasons to use a correct answer. So this is something that I love, that we're not only trying to focus for students on the idea that there are ways to write that are very clear, but also that you get to make choices as a writer. And when we find that students are making choices at the sentence level, that starts to translate into making choices at the paragraph and essay level. So you don't end up with an entire essay that uses the same sentence structure or the same idea structure.
Okay, so when using this in summer school, I found that some of the students who are at a higher level would do their sentences differently than the example, and it would say it was wrong, but it wasn't wrong. So what I did was say, just look at the example and try to do it that way. But I felt that it was kind of putting them in a box.
Yeah. So there are two things here. One of them is Quill will ask you to be precise in terms of the words and the details. So you notice I used the word the, and there was no the in the response, right? The reason it's asking for that is because the algorithm wants to see that you can use the words we've requested to share the same idea. Now, if you're using the correct words, that you've used the because, but you've done a sentence that is not in these options, and the more complex these sentences get, the more opportunity you'll see that. What I call that when I worked with students, and I saw that all the time, is outsmarting the algorithm, right? Our algorithm is like a pretty well-trained puppy, right? It's still a puppy, it's still learning. Every day we train it to recognize new answers, but occasionally it will not recognize an answer yet. In those cases, this is where, you know, at the beginning I made that comment about you have my email for a reason, whatever else. We are a collaborative company. In our office, we have 8 folks, right? When I joined the team, there were 7. I'm number 8. So we're a very small team, and we really rely on the work that our students and teachers do to contribute to the understanding our algorithm has of complex sentences. So what I have students do, and I actually had a really great example of it this week, is if they notice an error, or if they write a correct sentence and Quill doesn't recognize it, I ask them to take a screenshot and send it to me. If you're not really confident with giving them my email address, totally cool. You can take a screenshot and send it to me, or you can take a picture with your camera phone and text it to me. You'll have my cell phone number. I'll respond to your email with my cell phone number. You can just say, this is a sentence that Quill should recognize, and I can send that straight over to my content team and have them make sure that that's a part of the answers that it recognizes, right? So one of the things that I talk to my students a lot about, and I think that we could probably do a better job explaining it at Quill as an organization, is that Quill relies on our users to help our algorithm be stronger and stronger at recognizing all the complexities of the English language, right? It doesn't know everything yet, but it's learning, and it's pretty smart, but we really need students and teachers like you to push it to be something that can help every student. The greatest part about student contributions is every time your student helps us find a sentence that we can add to our library, that supports the answers of 400,000 students. And honestly, every week we're getting closer and closer to 1 million. So that's, you know, we have 400,000 so far. We're getting closer and closer. So really, if you can talk to your students about contributing to Quill as something that they're a part of rather than something they're just using, we find it makes a big difference in engagement, and it also really helps out our community. Does that help to answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. One thing I'll also say along with this is, so in a lot, you know, like a lot of this stuff is just, you know, we need to train the algorithm. In a few cases, there is a bit of human error in there, especially in the grammar activities. You'll run across a case where it just, you know, it's not a complex sentence, it's just not recognizing it. In any grammar or proofreading exercise, if you take a picture and text it to me, I can fix it within 10 minutes. So we just really encourage you to say, like, if there's something, send me a text message, I'll fix it in 10 minutes. And when your students will go back to that question, they'll be able to get the correct answer.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we've looked a little bit at activities. We've looked at the activity at packs. From those student reports and diagnostics, you can assign all of our recommendations across the board, or you can pick and choose. So say you don't want to assign the student who had 6 recommendations, all of those recommendations right off the bat, you can click on those options and remove them so that they are not assigned to her right away. You could also say, Quill doesn't think any of these students need adjective work, but I'm noticing this is something that's really lacking in our writing in class. So I'm going to go across the board and I'm going to assign these students this adjective pack because I know they need work on that. Okay. Once again, you are the people who know the most about your students. All right.
I'm
yes.
noticing 11th grade, there's really not a whole lot for grammar. There's one activity, and then for combined sentences, there's a number of activities. But I'm not seeing a variety of choices for 7th grade.
Are you looking at assign activities?
I'm looking at explore activities and create activity.
Great. So you're in, so let me just show everyone so we can get caught up with you. We've got assign activities and we've got explore all activities. Now I imagine what you're doing is you're filtering by standard, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and you're looking at 7th grade Common Core standards, right? So you'll notice we've got a series, is this what you're seeing?
Correct.
Right. So what you can see overall, first of all, I find the grade levels here to be incredibly deceptive, and here's why. We all know that, like, in many ways, writing is not like math, right? It's very subjective, it moves in different ways. However, when it comes to grammar rules, a subject-verb agreement is always the same subject-verb agreement in the same way that addition is the same for 7th graders as it is for 11th graders, right? So the sentences might be more complex, but the basic idea remains the same. Students will never see the standard level here, so I rarely use the standard level report at this stage. What I usually use is the actual concept, right? So I'm looking through here and I'm saying, I really want my students to focus on prepositions. And then I can look through. And while it says it's a Common Core standard for 1st grade, the preposition between and beyond might still be a relevant skill for my students. So one of the things that we do, and a lot of activities and games, especially the ones that apply for younger students, will really get into funny, weird, creatures and other things like that to make it fun and engaging and, kid-like for the students. One of the reasons we've kept our platform very straightforward is because we want that same assignment to work for a 3rd grader, to work for a 4th grader, to work for an 8th grader. We don't want there to be any shame in that 8th grader working on the same skill that a 1st grader is working on, because we know that sometimes, I have found that there are 1st grade Common Core standards that I am not quite familiar with yet, and I have gone back and worked on those as well, right? So the answer to there doesn't seem to be a lot in terms of 7th grade is don't limit yourself to what grade level it says. Focus on the skills you want your students working on.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay. So here, while we're looking at exploring the activity pack, this is a great time for me just to show you the 4 different types of activities you'll see. The diagnostic's pretty obvious. We have 2 options for that right now. Anytime you see that spyglass, that's our diagnostic. Quill Connect, that's the sentence combining activities you saw me doing just a minute ago that really focus on taking 2 or more sentences and putting them together. Some of the activities will have a specific skill, like using the word because. Some of them will actually focus on students putting their own relationship words in there, okay? Grammar, that's the really basic stuff. So you'll go through a passage and you'll edit things like Sally is going to school today. And Quill Proofreader, now this is one I get really excited about because I really wish I had it before I had students edit one another's essays. So here's an example if I look at, training for gold here. This is focused on verbs. So what you'll get for this is an activity that's going to say, at the top, I have 8 errors, right? In order to make a change, I have to click on the word and type the changes. Now, if you notice, unlike a lot of multiple choice activities, there is no hint here for me about where the errors are. I have to find the verbs myself. The one way I've seen teachers use this activity effectively is to first go through with their students and identified the verbs, right? So suddenly this becomes a whole class and independent activity, right? So let's go through and someone play my peanut gallery now. Can someone in the audience tell me the first verb that you see in here? Let me make that bigger. I know this is hard to read.
Work.
Work. Okay, so here's my verb. Now notice I could change the whole word here if I want to. So I would say to my students, we know that work is the verb here. Is that the correct subject-verb agreement, right? If it is, they can leave it. If not, they can change it. So what I'm going to do now is make some random changes to this to show you, you know, this is my sloppy work. You needs to train. Do that, right? I'm going to maybe decide that I was supposed to spell other things in here. When he trained now, Michael Phelps swims every day, right? So when I made just a few changes, it wouldn't let me move on. Now that I made 6, it's going to try to let me go, right? Now it's going to tell me exactly how many errors I discovered. So this is the area where I find that maybe the first time out the gate, the students will, you know, sort of mess around as they go. But after time, they'll actually really focus on it because of the feedback it gives and because of the fact that it doesn't let them off the hook if they guess their way through it, right? So I can see anything in red here is a place where my answer is shown as incorrect, right? I made a change that was wrong. Any place in purple is something I changed that didn't need to be changed. And anything in green is something that I got correct. Now here's one of the things that I love about this tool. Not only do I now have to go through all of them and see what I did, it's now going to assign me sentences to practice each one of the skills I struggled with going through the activity. So I'm going to get an example of how to do that correct. I'm going to get some instructions, and I'm going to get the opportunity to practice that question. Now, the way I usually would use a proofreading activity is actually on a day where students were either proofreading their own or other students' writing, and I would start here, and then I would move them into proofreading. And what I found was because they had tried, like they'd gotten feedback on how they looked at the writing in Quill, they did a better job of looking at one another's writing or their own writing and sort of a like step back and figuring out what they needed to change. So those are the big 4 in terms of Quill and the different skills. We have, I think, we've got 7 minutes left, if I'm correct.
Yep.
So I'm going to give you a quick peek at the student reports, and then I'm going to shut my mouth. So I'm going to take 2 minutes on reports. So here we are. We're at the student report. My favorite reports are the visual overview and the Common Core. So those are the 2 that I'll show you. From the visual overview, I can see overall how my students are doing. Now these colors here are super important because that's what students see in their view once they complete an assignment. If it's gray, that means they haven't completed the assignment. If it's red, that means they have, but they're not quite yet at proficiency. If it's yellow, they're almost there. And if it's green, they're there. Now you'll notice when you assign something to students, even if you set a due date, it won't lock them out of the assignment at any point. And that's because at Quill, philosophically, we believe that students can always improve their writing. And we want them to have the opportunity to go back and fight for proficiency. When a student's at red, we encourage you to intervene and have a conversation with them so that they can get the support they need to move up. When a student's at yellow, we encourage you to ask them to give it another shot and try it and see if they can get up to proficiency. But we always look at this as a challenge for students in how to work forward. So now if I go through my students, I can see Robert's only completed 2 activities before. If I hover over it, I can see a little more detail about how exactly he's done. I can scroll through, I can see Haley's done a whole bunch. Here's an activity where I might want to check in with her and make sure she understands the concept. And here's one I'm going to ask her to go back and try again. You can see maybe, you know, so Micaiah might be new to my class, only completed a diagnostic so far, but those are different things I can see as I scroll through these assignments. So across the board, this is just a quick overview, and I can see how students are doing. There's an activity. Sorry, go ahead.
Visual, student reports, visual overview, is that where that is?
Yep, student reports, visual overview. So the next one that I'll go into pretty quickly And there, you can notice there are a lot of other reports in here that I haven't looked at. You can actually see on the sentence level what students have answered in different questions. So if you really want to do a deep dive into a student's writing struggles, you can absolutely do that. Now, I really love this Common Core Standard report because it helps me to see sort of by specifics how my students are doing. I'm actually, in this case, I think I'm going to go with the concept report. So we've got the concept report. The first page here is going to show me overall how a student's, how much they've done in terms of usage, right? So teachers are often asking about like, what grade do I give my student, right? You might consider a usage grade, right? So overall, I've had 17 questions. I've got 15 correct. Here's my overall score. When I click on the individual student, I can see all of the skills they've had the opportunity to practice, how many questions they've had on them, and what their overall percentage is. So we know Robert hasn't completed too much. Let's go back and look at, who was our student who completed a bunch? I think it was Haley. Yep, I can see she has 124 sentences. Here are all of the skills that Haley's had the chance to practice, and here's how she's doing. So now notice, she's got 0% here in terms of punctuation, but she's only had one question that's tested her on that, so I'm not so worried about that 0%. On the other hand, when I look at comma before coordinating conjunctions, I notice out of 14 opportunities, she's gotten it wrong 5 times. So that might be an area where I want to have a conversation with her about that work, right? So I can see overall how my students are doing on these different skills. Now, this is a printable report. So if you are maybe attaching things to a student's IEP and having conversations with parents, this is a great place to do that. I'm going to stop now because I've talked a lot. Any questions you guys have?
What are we doing with the email draft here?
Okay, so this is it. We are 3 minutes left. This always happens in these sessions because people ask good questions and I talk way too much. If you can go back into that email, write down one question you have that I didn't answer. Write down one research you wish you had, one resource you wish you had. You don't have to write down all of this, but whatever comes to your mind. You can tell me how soothing you find my speaking voice.
Yeah,
you can, what are some other things you can write to me? You can give me feedback, right? So I heard a couple of you talking about using it over the summer. If there's something specific you wished you'd seen, their content that you wish we had, whatever else, then please toss that in there. So like I said, we're a small team, we're very agile. When you tell us things like that, we actually get to make a change that has a positive impact on our entire community, and we really appreciate that. The last thing I'm going to put in here, and you're going to get this in addition to my cell phone number in this email that I send out, is this page we call, it's a bit.ly called Quill Expert. And this is a great resource for you. What it does is it links to all the different places on the on the Quill website where you can see different hints. It's also got information from other teachers that I've worked with who have given suggestions throughout this time, right? If I look through here, I can access information as Quill Diagnostic. Here's a page of resources, or it like walks you through it. And then there's also some teacher feedback about this. Here are the Getting Started guys under resources, learning and previewing Quill tools, so you can check those out. Frequently asked questions. And then this is one that I find teachers are really interested in. It's my favorite resource, are extensions that you can use in Google Chrome to support your students, not only on Quill, but on all tools where they're reading or writing. At the bottom of this document, you can find my face. That's me. You can find some information about the research we use. If what I said sounded fishy in any way, absolutely check me out. And then these are some ideas that we have for folks when their students are really struggling in terms of doing this work. So I've talked to some schools where the principal's really adamant that they're going to use this in K-2, and that can be a real struggle. So we recommend other things. So typing club, working through the activities together, etc.
What was that bit.ly again? I'm sorry.
The bit.ly is bit. Oh, let me just pull it up for you. That's probably easier than me talking it at you. So it's right here. bit.ly/Quill Expert. And I will send that to you in an email as long as you email me first.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm going to hang out for a little bit longer. I know it's the end of y'all's day, so if you need to get out of here, get out of here. But I'm also here if you have any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, take care.
There you
Judy,
go.
got anything else you need?